You mean radiating a soft glow with the look of bliss and excitement.
Person okayed it. I would eat a human.
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
3 clips, 3 completely different conversations, 3 completely different people, and yet somehow they all connect to the same woman, the same circle, and the same question that the internet has been screaming for years, and nobody in power has wanted to answer. Why does Ellen DeGeneres never seem to age? And why, when Joe Rogan heard the actual answer to that question, did he go completely silent? But here's what nobody is connecting. For years, you were told the Jeffrey Epstein story was closed. Case settled, guilty plea, prison, done, move on. The people connected to him were protected by a wall of money, influence, and strategic silence so thick that even seasoned investigators described it as suffocating. Then the files dropped. Not the version the news cycle gave you, the 48-hour media moment that disappeared just as fast as it arrived. The real files, the unedited communications, the offshore account records, the will signed 2 days before a man mysteriously died in a federal prison with the most surveilled ceiling in the world somehow malfunctioning at exactly the right moment. And buried inside those files, not front-page headlines, not featured segments, just quietly, methodically indexed inside thousands of pages of email records, was something that even the lawmakers who read them couldn't explain away.
There was also a lot of language that appears to be coded regarding food. I wanted to let you know the crew really appreciated the pizza. Another email read, "This is better than a Chinese cookie, see attached. Let's go for pizza and grape soda."
Pizza, pasta, jerky, muffin. These aren't lunch orders. According to lawmakers who reviewed the unedited documents, including Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who stated on record that these phrases were used in ways that were not normal. These words appeared across email after email in contexts that made forensic language experts sit up and call them what they almost certainly were: euphemisms.
It cannot be clearer than this, that this is a code word. It makes no sense in that context whatsoever.
And then there's the jerky. Email after email. Jerky stored in freezers. Jerky carried in insulated bags. Jerky delivered urgently between Epstein and his closest associates. Did we analyze the beef? Did we analyze the jerky? One forensic analyst who reviewed the communications publicly stated that the way the word was used, the frequency, the context, the urgency, didn't track as food. Not even close. Online investigators were already asking whether the jerky language was connected to something far darker: allegations involving human biological material, processed, stored, and consumed within a very specific, very private inner circle. And when those same investigators started connecting that inner circle to Hollywood's most recognizable faces, one name kept surfacing above all others: Ellen DeGeneres. Here is the question that sent Joe Rogan into stunned silence. Ellen DeGeneres is in her mid-60s. She has been in the public eye for over 3 decades. She has survived professional destruction, a workplace scandal that took down an entire show, the collapse of her public image, and the kind of online scrutiny that has dismantled people with far less exposure. And through all of it, she looks remarkable. She looks, by almost any measure, decades younger than she should. Now, most people would hear that and say, money. Good money buys good doctors. Good doctors buy good outcomes. But according to the theory, gaining serious traction across multiple platforms, a theory directly connected to the Epstein files and the coded language, in those communications, the answer is not a dermatologist. The answer is something that Joe Rogan, when it was described to him in specific terms, allegedly received not with shock, but with slow, heavy, recognizing silence.
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
Extraction from a young person, far away. Now, on the surface, someone could argue that's just an unusual skincare treatment, an exotic foreskin facial, something a wealthy celebrity might seek out and awkwardly describe on camera. And maybe that's all it is. But here's the context that changes everything. This clip resurfaced during the Epstein file release cycle, at the exact moment that investigators and online researchers were mapping the connections between Epstein's inner circle and coded language about biological material from young people. At the exact moment that jerky stored urgently, delivered privately, consumed within a sealed inner circle, was being analyzed by forensic language experts as a possible euphemism for something that should never be described politely in any language. The theory is not that Ellen got an unusual facial. The theory, the allegation being made across multiple platforms based on the convergence of the Epstein files, the coded language, and Ellen's documented proximity to that inner circle, is that what Ellen has allegedly been consuming, participating in, and benefiting from at private gatherings with the Epstein and connected celebrities is the reason she looks the way she looks. And Joe Rogan, the man who has heard everything, processed everything, and laughed off almost everything, allegedly went quiet because he'd already heard it before, from somewhere else, from someone close enough to that world to know what was actually on the menu. Let's talk about what Ellen DeGeneres' documented social connections actually look like when you lay them out flat. She is on record being invited to Diddy's parties, specifically his infamous gatherings, the ones that are now the subject of federal investigation. The ones where the after party, as Ellen herself described in that interview, started at midnight and ran until the top 2 floors of a hotel became something that nobody is discussing publicly in full detail yet.
That's a different type of party, though. No, it'll go from like 9:30 to like maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then, we have the top 2 floors of the hotel.
And then it will carry on there.
Yeah. Then no, I mean the after party.
No, I know about them.
And then there's what happened to the people who got too close to the truth about Ellen and tried to talk. Justin Bieber, a young star who came up in the same Hollywood ecosystem, who appeared on Ellen's show repeatedly during the most vulnerable years of his career, once spoke openly about feeling scared, uncomfortable, and unprotected in that world. At the time, people said it was the pressure of fame. Now, researchers who've gone back through the timeline are asking whether he was saying something that he didn't yet have the language, the safety, or the credibility to say out loud. Then there's Chrissy Teigen, a longtime friend of Ellen's, present at the same celebrity gatherings, connected to the same social circles.
Actually, nothing I wouldn't eat or wouldn't drink or wouldn't try.
If the person okayed it, I would eat a human.
At the time, that was called dark humor. Hollywood is known for edgy jokes, right? But after the Epstein files, after the coded language about food, jerky, and biological extraction, people stopped laughing. Because the question isn't whether Chrissy Teigen was joking. The question is why, within a very specific social circle, in a very specific cultural moment, the joke that keeps getting made is always the same joke. And now we have to talk about Anne Heche, because you cannot tell this story completely without her. Anne Heche dated Ellen DeGeneres in the late 1990s. She paid for it publicly. She lost roles, lost deals, lost momentum, but she didn't break. She kept talking, she kept recording, and in her final years, she was saying things that were specific, targeted, not the ramblings of a bitter ex, the documented on-record statements of a woman who had been inside something and wanted the world to understand what it was.
That I spoke, I was hit more, buried more, or despised more, and then had calculated visions and circulations of systems that spun me up and out.
She said Ellen allegedly tried to have her committed to a psychiatric facility, not because she was unstable, but because she was talking. Her own mother was allegedly recruited into the effort. 2 people working together to erase one woman's credibility before she could do any more damage. On August 5th, 2022, Anne Heche's car accelerated to over 80 miles per hour through a residential neighborhood in Los Angeles and drove straight into a house. The vehicle exploded. She was trapped inside a burning car for 30 minutes. She was placed in a coma and never regained consciousness. Her toxicology? Sober. The hospital admission blood work showed past cocaine use, not present. Not at the time of the crash. She was sober when that car hit 80 miles an hour. Anne Heche, who had been publicly warning people about Ellen, who was in active conversation with Harrison Ford about what she knew, who said on record that the people trying to silence her could not shut her down, died sober in a burning car, while her former partner was quietly preparing a Netflix special about her own victimhood. Now here's where it stands. Ellen DeGeneres is in England, decisively to a country where American federal investigators face significantly more friction in conducting unannounced inquiries. That he believes it is time, that he is allegedly prepared to cooperate with authorities and provide whatever documentation and testimony he has regarding the circumstances surrounding Anne Heche's death, the people who created a climate of fear around her final months, and what he knows about Ellen DeGeneres. Rob Schneider, of all people, accidentally put it most clearly when he talked about Ellen needing a coming to Jesus moment. That phrase lands completely differently now, because for a woman whose name is appearing in Epstein file connections, whose ex-girlfriend warned the world and then died, whose coded social circle allegedly joked openly about consuming human flesh, Anne and who quietly left the country when the documents started becoming searchable. A coming to Jesus moment isn't career advice. It might be the last off-ramp available. Anne Heche is still being talked about loudly by the right people. Harrison Ford is done being a background character, and Ellen DeGeneres is sitting in the English countryside doing a Netflix special about how unfairly she was treated, while the walls that protected her for 15 years crack from the inside. The question was never whether any of this would come out. The question was always when. And based on everything in these files, everything these people have said, and everything that one very famous, very quiet man in Hollywood is allegedly about to say on the record, the answer to when is looking a lot like now.